Welcome back to History, Horrors, and Haunts. I'm Grim Jim, the Underteller. I don't bury the dead. I tell the stories the living forgot. My assistant and loyal servant Morty Grimsnatch, short for Mortimer, will explain. Take it away, Morty.
Have you ever wondered how evil can hide behind a polite facade? Some monsters look exactly like what we expect. Others hide behind a polite smile. Hamilton Howard Albert Fish appeared to be a frail, soft-spoken old man. With his thin frame, gray hair, and gentle manner, he looked like someone's harmless grandfather. But behind that mild appearance lurked one of the most sadistic killers in American history. Fish would become known by many names, such as the Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac. And to frighten children, something even more chilling: the Boogeyman. During the 1920s and early 1930s, Albert Fish preyed on children across New York and surrounding states. His crimes were so disturbing that even hardened detectives struggled to comprehend them. He preyed on innocent children, committing unimaginable acts of murder, mutilation, and cannibalism. Fish later claimed he had killed children in every state in America, though only a handful of murders were ever definitively confirmed. But the confirmed cases alone were enough to cement his place among the most horrifying killers in American history. And none were more infamous than the disappearance of 10-year-old Grace Budd. On May 28, 1928, Fish first visited the Budd family in Manhattan, posing as a farmer named Frank Howard from Farmingdale, New York. He claimed he had work for their teenage son, Edward. Fish promised to hire Edward and his friend Willie, saying he would send for them in a few days. But he never returned. Instead, a telegram arrived, an apology, and a new date. To appear trustworthy, he even brought gifts: pot cheese and strawberries. When Fish came back, everything changed. This time, he met Edward's younger sister, 10-year-old Gracie Budd. And in that moment, his attention shifted from Edward to Grace. He quickly invented a story about a birthday party for his niece, and set his plan in motion. After gaining the trust of her parents, Delia Budd and Albert Budd Sr., Fish convinced them to allow Grace to accompany him to what he described as a birthday party. Trusting the seemingly harmless old man, her parents agreed. Grace walked out the door with Albert Fish, in her finest clothes, unaware of what awaited her. He reassured her parents that he would bring her home shortly. It was the last time her family would ever see her alive. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into years. Detectives searched tirelessly for Grace, but answers eluded them for years. The Budd family could only wait, hoping for a sign, for any sign of what had happened. But Grace had vanished without a trace. Then, 6 years later, the family's nightmare returned. In November 1934, Grace's mother received a letter written with evil intent. It was from Albert Fish. Inside the letter, Fish described how he had taken Grace to an abandoned house in Westchester that he had already chosen. He wrote that he told the child to wait outside while she picked wildflowers. Inside the house, he removed his clothes so they would not be stained with blood. Then he called her upstairs. Fish described hiding in a closet until Grace entered the room. He later wrote that when Grace saw him, she became frightened, began to cry, and tried to run down the stairs. He claimed he stopped her before she could escape. According to his account, he grabbed her, and she said she would tell her mama. Fish murdered the child and later admitted to disposing of her remains. His chilling letters left detectives horrified. The contents were so disturbing that even seasoned investigators struggled to read it. For the Budd family, the letter was an act of unimaginable cruelty. But it also gave detectives their first real clue. Investigators traced the stationery used in the letter to a boarding house in Manhattan. Police quickly located the resident who had sent it: Albert Fish. When officers arrested him, the frail old man offered little resistance. During interrogation, he calmly confessed. Fish told investigators he had scattered parts of Grace's remains in the woods near the abandoned house. Police later recovered some of her bones from the areas he described. Grace Budd's murder is little remembered today but remains one of the most heinous crimes in Westchester history. But Grace Budd was not his only victim. Years earlier, in 1924, 8-year-old Francis McDonald disappeared while playing near his home on Staten Island. Witnesses later reported seeing a gaunt, gray-haired man lingering near playgrounds. Days later, Francis's body was discovered in a wooded area. The child had been strangled and severely beaten. When Fish was questioned about the crime, he initially attempted to deny any involvement. However, he later admitted to the murder after he was convicted of Grace's murder in 1935. Another disturbing case involved 4-year-old Billy Gaffney, who vanished from a Brooklyn apartment building on February 11, 1927. Billy had been playing in the hallway with another boy when they both disappeared. While the other child was shortly found unharmed, a frantic search was launched for Billy. When asked what happened to Gaffney, the boy's answer was chilling. The boogeyman took him. The boy's body was discovered in March 1927, wrapped in a burlap sack at a rubbish dump. Reports described severe injuries, indicating the child had been beaten before his death. Years later, Albert Fish would confess that Billy Gaffney had also been one of his victims. During his trial in 1935, Fish displayed a disturbing calmness. Doctors who examined him discovered something even stranger. X-rays revealed that Fish had dozens of needles embedded throughout his body, some lodged deep within his pelvis. Many believe the needles were connected to his long history of extreme self-harm and sadomasochistic behavior. Despite arguments about his mental state, the court ruled that Albert Fish was legally sane. He was convicted of the murder of Grace Budd. On January 16, 1936, Albert Fish was executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing prison. Newspapers at the time made dark jokes about the metal needles in his body and whether the electricity would even work. But the execution proceeded as planned. And one of the most horrifying killers in American history was finally gone. Yet the story of Albert Fish still lingers. A reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not the ones who look frightening, but the ones who look perfectly ordinary.
Well now, not every monster hides under the bed. Sometimes they sit politely at the dinner table. Albert Fish looked like someone's grandfather, but behind that gray hair and gentle smile lurks something far darker. And as I always say, I don't bury the dead. I tell the stories the living forgot. See you next time on History, Horrors, and Haunts. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring that notification bell, because some stories refuse to stay buried.